This is the Page Publishing Book Club. How you doing? How you doing, Rob? Let's have a party. I'm Alice Stockton Rossini, your host. This, of course, is the place to come find out how first-time authors became first-time authors so you can be a first-time author. Am I right? I am absolutely right. Tonight, we're going to start with a first-time author who picked up where his mom left off. William Sova's mom wrote Hatshepsut, Queen to the King. Back in the late 60s, she did a ton of research on Egypt's first female pharaoh. Very, very successful woman. She ruled for like 2 decades. But the book was 700 pages long, and when she took it to publishers, they told her, got to make it shorter. So she did on a manual typewriter. Can you imagine that? Do you know what that is, a manual typewriter? I don't even remember what one looked like. But anyway, she got it down to 400 pages, and that was it. So now, almost 50 years later, William has finally published the book, and he couldn't have done it without WOR. How about that? Am I right, William? Go ahead, make your confession. Go ahead.
I wasn't a listener to WOR. Shame on me, right? No. But it's an interesting set of circumstances here. But I became a listener to WOR last year when it became the Mets' new flagship station. So I started to listen to Mets games on WOR, and it was from commercials on Mets games that I found out about the Page Publishing Book Club. So I thought to myself, gee, this is kind of neat. Here's a publisher that, has this show that interviews the authors of the books they publish. And I said to myself, okay, let me give this one more shot. And now I know that these days most literary agents and publishers want the authors who submit their work to do it in electronic form rather than on paper. So I had the entire book put on CD, and I took the CD down to Page last year, and exactly 1 week later, on November 11th, I get a phone call saying, we're going to publish it. So after, 40 other people said no, Page Publishing said yes.
So this has got to feel good. You actually carried out your mom's dream.
Yeah, it finally happened. I kind of feel good about it. There's one other avenue that I want to try, and I've done some research on you online. I know you're a award-winning reporter. I would like to talk to the actor Henry Cavill. He's the new movie Superman, and he has openly expressed a very strong interest in Egyptology. I think he may be intrigued that a fan would want to talk to him about his interest. If I could give him the book, and maybe he would like it and say, hey, there may be a movie here. I tried to call his agent, Creative Artists Agency in Los Angeles. I expected this response: we don't accept unsolicited material. And I'm just thinking, I wonder if, is there any possible way that you might be able to make this happen for me, Alice?
I mean, all I could do is I could reach out to his people and tell them what the deal is and see if they would accept. I mean, as a fan, sending him a copy of a book your mother wrote about a subject he's interested in, I can't see, if you just send it to them, how that might not get to him. But I mean, as far as like setting up a meeting between the two of you, I love that you think I have that kind of power, but I don't. I don't know Henry Cavill personally.
I know you say you don't have that power, but you have, you have a more power than I.
All right, William, I will see what I can do.
Give my regards to Rob Barrett.
You know Rob?
No, because you always mention his, mention him on the show every weekend. And I don't think I've ever heard him speak, so just say hello to him.
All right, William. Well, Rob, could you please say hello to William so that he knows you exist? Okay. Well, Rob's talk. You're not going to believe me, William, but Rob talks to me, and I hear him in my head, but you can't hear him on my board. So, yeah, he wants to remain a mystery. The mystery board operator. You're just going to have to believe me, William. He says hi back. All right. Carol Ann McGrath wrote about 12 men from 12 very different religious backgrounds And one day, they all got an envelope with the same word on it, which is the name of your book, right, Carolyn?
It says come. And they've known for many, many centuries, this has gone on for many, many centuries, that they have to stop everything they're doing and leave immediately, and they would be taken to an unknown destination. The unknown destination is a monastery in Switzerland. And when the 12 men all get there, they're given assignments where they go around the world. They're going to Turkey and India, Mongolia, Cairo, and various places to find artifacts that had been lost in time. And when the artifacts change their lives. The last chapter brings everything together where the 12 men and all the artifacts come back together, and it changes the world. When these men are called, the world is in total turmoil. And the artifacts help to bring peace and tranquility back to the world, pretty much like what the world is in today, where there's fighting all over the world and everything. When I write, I usually start with just one word, and wherever that word takes me is what my writing turns out to be. So after the first chapter was written, I said, I've got an idea, and this is what I decided to do. It wasn't anything that was pre-planned. I don't write from outlines or anything. I just sit down and I write, and then I decide what I'm going to do.
Have you been writing your whole life?
I started writing when I was in 7th grade. I had a creative writing teacher, Adele Edelman, who was fantastic. And then I stopped writing for quite a while. I was in the legal field for 35 years. I was a paralegal, and I did most of the briefs. And when my husband got sick, I finished writing Five Angels. And then after he passed away, I started taking up writing again. I'm now retired, and this is like my second career.
So now you have time to write.
Yes, I do.
So many people say the same thing to me, that they sit down, they start writing, and it's almost as if they're possessed.
That's very true. I mean, like I said, I don't write from an outline. I don't know what I'm going to write in advance. I just sit down, and whatever happens, happens.
What's your advice for people that are listening that want to write but can't seem to get moving?
Just sit down and do it. It's a lot easier than you think it is. If you have an idea, put it on paper. If you're sleeping in the middle of the night, you wake up with an idea, just write it down, because by the morning you will forget it. And you may not be great the first time, but just keep trying and trying and trying, and eventually you'll get there. Sometimes you're going to find you have to edit your story 8, 10, 12 times before you're really happy with it. And then when the editor gets it, the editor is going to do some more editing on it. But just keep trying and just keep writing. It's one of the greatest releases that you will ever find, and you'll find out how creative you can be.
How are you with promoting your books?
Well, the library in the town that I live in, they're going to have a book signing for me. Several of the papers have written articles on my book up here. I've been in contact with Barnes & Noble in Holbrook, where my daughter lives. I'm trying to arrange a book signing there. The Sachem Library in Long Island, where my grandchildren are members of, is going to give me a table next year at their local authors writers review that they have. I'm going to go to several of the libraries in town to, around the area to see if I could schedule book signings that way also.
Man, you have lots of motivation there, Carolyn. A big, big, big part of getting your book noticed. I hope you were listening closely. Cloris Boone is a listener. She loves hearing other people's stories, and she thinks the rest of us should learn to do the same. It's what her book, The Listener, is all about. All right, Cloris, I'm all ears.
We're living now at a time when people look at their hands and talk to their hands. This is a story about how keep things that hurt us badly if they don't come out. And the story is about a woman who listened to people all of their lives by not interfering with them. And so the woman who comes to live with her after the old lady dies continues in that process. But she becomes very tired of it because most people are very ordinary. Have you noticed that?
That most people are very ordinary?
Yes, aren't we all?
I think there's something exceptional about everyone. I think everybody's got something.
There is a basic human personality. It's within us all. And if we do not accept that and in some way participate in ordinary human life, we are lost. And it's very hard to find your way back. One of the main people in the book is a man who has lost his wife to a holdup, and then he cannot live without his wife, and no one will listen to him. He is so lonely. But he's so unhappy that he drives off other women. He has to talk. He has to get it out. And so finally, the main character in this book, whose name is Hope Long, listens to him as she slowly, through the process of the long pages of the book, listens to everyone. Because, and this is the kicker, baby, everybody's got a story. And we all need to talk. I wrote this book about 30 years ago, and it's interesting that it's coming out now when people are starting to stop talking to each other.
You know, it's interesting you should say that, because when we first started talking, I thought, wow, you know, have you been sitting there observing how our society has changed, and nobody talks to each other. They talk through texting, Facebook, anything but, you know, on the phone or face to face. And it's interesting now, this is a book about listening and about the importance of human contact and the importance of really looking at each other and hearing what the other person has to say.
Exactly.
And you said you wrote this 30 years ago, so that's even more interesting to me.
Oh, yeah. I got a box full of ideas. I've got a box full of poetry. I just love to do stuff like that. And every now and then I pull something out. I've got 2 other fully developed books ready to go. And after this one, I think I'll put another one out.
You know what, Cloris? You do that. Put it out, whatever you got, put it out there and see what happens. Gregorys Throne has a request. Please save your asides for your shrink. That is the name of his book. Gregory, what are you talking about?
Who knows? Oh, it's me in book form. It's a crazy book filled with asides, jokes, some sketches. It's got a little bit of everything, and even a few messages in there too for the readers to take home.
Are you a comedian?
I am a comedy writer. Haven't actually gotten up on a stage in a long time. Not since I used to do Toastmasters in Hawaii. I was one of those guys. But I've always erred on the side of comedy with my writing. Even in like my term papers back in college, I would write jokes in there. That's actually where the book title comes from.
Well, give me something my audience can laugh at. We've got a bunch of writers listening. They're waiting with bated breath.
This book has all kinds of rants and jokes about football, possibly ruining society as we know it. There's a chapter about New Yorkers. I've been in New York for 10 years now, and all of the characters that I write about in that chapter is to prepare visitors if they were to come to New York. What they might encounter on the subway train, like the angry self-ranter guy, he's swearing at nobody for no reason. Reggae tone guy, the guy who's playing his reggae music way too loud and always next to you at the beach. Angry birds, there's women who just walk around New York just like furious at the world, so I don't get in their way. And I talk about my family a little bit, teach the world about the male cycle, and we all know women have a cycle, but men have one too.
Oh, tell me about the male cycle.
So, okay, you asked for it. So it's based on the different types of orgasms that a man can have, whether they be brought on by another human or by himself, and whether or not it was a good session or not. So there's basically four types. I'm going off the cuff here, but so there's the type that's produced by really hot sex with another human. That's orgasm type A. That's the best cycle. You're going to be in a good mood for that week. Everything seems like coming up roses for you. You're ready to sing. Then there's type B. That's the second best one. That's just having sex, but it wasn't very good necessarily. Type C is the third best type of orgasm a guy can have, and that's when he's doing it brought on, but it was a really good session. You had the whole house to yourself. You know, you don't have to rush. You can put on what kind of movie you want, and really romance yourself the way that you always wanted to. So each one of these spurs on a different type of 4 or 5 day cycle for a male, and you can tell based on his mood which kind of which kind you've had recently. I touch on a lot of different things.
Okay. Thanks for clearing up those mail changes for me, Gregory. And by the way, he's just getting started. So watch for his next book. Okay, you know what? The music's coming just in time. I really think we need to take a quick break, don't you, Rob? Yeah, I thought so. But we are coming right back, so you should too. This is the Page Publishing Book Club.
Have you written a book and want to get it published? Then now's the time to call Page Publishing at 800-204-6099 and do it immediately. You see, they're looking for authors of all types of books. And unlike most publishers, Page Publishing will take the time to review most of the books submitted to them. And they'll even give you their feedback. And if they like what they read, Page Publishing will get your book into bookstores and for sale online at Amazon, the Apple iTunes Store, and other outlets. They'll handle everything. Copyright protection, printing, cover art, publicity, and editing. So if you've written a novel, a children's book, a cookbook, inspirational work, a book of poetry, or biography, and want to get it published, then you need to call Page Publishing and do it immediately. Call 800-204-6099 now for your free author submission kit. Your road to fame and fortune could very well start with this simple phone call. For your free author submission kit, call Page Publishing at 800-204-6099.
Is that the best bass line you ever heard? Hey, thanks for coming back to the Page Publishing Book Club. How nice of you. Sit back, relax, and enjoy Reflections. That's the name of Al Cook's book about a man who grew up in College Point, New York. You know, what's so interesting about that? You got to tell me, Al.
Well, it describes my young life as a child of very small stature and the daily issues I had while growing up amongst dysfunctional and corrupted people. The treatment I received by a majority of people who were taller than I was, the daily conflict and turmoil I was subjected to or witnessed by the professed good and religious people of my parish, my town, my mother's family, various officials from all fields, how they didn't teach us about the hypocrisies and loyalty and honor, trust, truth, love, sex, drugs, and death. It includes experiences with ESP and astral projection and deja vu and gods, and is virtually a Pandora's box.
ESP and astral projection? What's that
Yes.
about?
I had always had extrasensory perceptions of things that was going to happen, just didn't know the order how it was going to be. And I guess I inherited from my mother because she was similarly like that. And I was able to project my body to fly, to see things. I didn't understand it all, right? But in the book, I bring about an accident that happened to me and my friend where we have I have an out-of-body experience, and I talk about how I viewed it and what was there and what I saw. And
Was your friend okay?
by the end of the summer, we were recovered.
And then you also had ESP?
I have many different experiences of ESP. Plane crashes, people getting hurt, accidents. Later, someone got me to go see a psychic, and the psychic told me that I was better than her and that I should get trained.
Did you?
No, I never did.
Were you an abused child?
Oh, yes. Yeah, I was sexually abused by my relatives. There's incest in this book. It just goes on. Other people, there's so much sex involved in this, in incest. And I was molested by a priest. I've seen countless sexual acts as a child because of where I live and the house I grew up in, which is above a family bar and restaurant. You see and hear things that you shouldn't be exposed to. And so, yeah, I've seen a lot, like that way.
So, there's a reason why you decided to share all this now.
Yeah, I think in today's times, people need to know that during the 50s and through the 70s, there was a lot of turmoil. There was a lot of stuff that went on that was covered up. I think it needs to be written about. I don't think anybody has wrote about And as many things in one book as personal experiences as I have in Reflections.
Wow, Al, I had no idea. It sounds very intense. And this is just Reflections 1? Al has Reflections 2 coming out about his time in the Army, serving in Europe, and the later part of his life should be interesting. Our next author, Josh Stricken, found inspiration from The Walking Dead and, while recovering from an accident, found the time to write Those Who Are Left.
Those Who Are Left, yes. It's sort of a horror novel. It's really more funny than it is scary, though. Basically, it's about being happy and finding happiness at the end of the world. Which doesn't sound like a fun one, I know, because the end of the world is not a very happy-go-lucky thing. But the main character's name is Derek. He's working in his barn, and he discovers that people have lost their marbles. One of his workers bursts into his office, and he's angry and he's pitching a fit, and he's just about to get rid of Derek for good when the second character is introduced and saves him just in the nick of time, and they figure, well, we got to get out of here because, people aren't normal, and they find out that people are moving to bigger cities to basically, start over or to just, find shelter.
What inspired you? That's always the question. What inspired you, Josh?
There's a very, intense thing that happened. I got into an accident, and I had already started this book, but I didn't really know where it was going. But then this accident happened, and it kind of took a big portion of my year, basically. And when I was writing it, I just kind of said, well, they say write what you know. And so I just kind of added that in there. And then everything else after it just kind of fell into place. It just kind of wrote itself after a while. What made me start writing it to begin with, sort of a zombie novel, but it's not like blood and guts and eat your brains kind of thing. And that's kind of where it all began, just kind of my fear of strangers, because people are kind of, if you don't know them very well, they can be kind of sketchy, and I thought it would be fun to just kind of play off that, because to be honest, all this, The Walking Dead and all these other things coming out that kind of relate, I was just like, maybe I can just hitch my carrots to that and just ride the coattails of everyone else who's famous right now.
I was smelling a little Walking Dead in there.
Yeah.
Now, I see that you're writing a series. Does your series revolve around this book?
The series doesn't revolve around this book. I would say this book revolves around the series that I'm writing. Much the same way that Stephen King's It revolves around or involves the Dark Tower series. You can read it by itself and it makes total sense, but when you read it in the same light as the trilogy that I'm writing, it kind of adds to the other book that isn't the trilogy. Basically, all the stuff that I've written so far kind of has been setting up the trilogy that I've started writing recently. So they're not like you have to read the trilogy in order to understand this.
Are you recovered from the incident that laid you up?
As much as I can be, yes.
Are you working? Yeah.
I work in a theater right now.
Oh, okay.
But most of what I do is writing.
Well, good luck to you, Josh. This is another example, and we've had plenty of them, of the therapeutic benefits of writing. All right, let's go out to San Diego, where John Phillips is standing by, a man who loves forensics and was able to combine that with his job and some extensive research to write his book, Off the Deep End. So where does this, all go down, so to speak?
It takes place in San Francisco. There's an FBI agent who is looking at retirement, and he's always had this theory that a serial killer exists that has been getting away with murder for years. And when this serial killer surfaces, doing a couple of different murders, he helps the FBI agents in charge of the case actually catch the killer. And there's a lot of different elements that help them along.
This sounds like a CSI kind of a plot. How do you know about this kind of stuff?
I did a lot of research online. I have a few friends in law enforcement that helped me out. And there's some great books out there about forensics that you can purchase online and just go to the local library and get.
You're very interested in forensics. You like all of that stuff.
I do. I'm a very picky kind of person. I grew up around computers. I grew up looking at the facts, looking in depth on DNA, on fingerprinting, on all these different things. I find the world very fascinating. Even going into the psychology behind why people do things is very fascinating to me, which made it easy for me to write the book.
But, you know, this is your first book out. Have you written anything else like this?
I've written a few other books that haven't been published yet. I'm in the middle of writing one right now, and then I'm going to work on the sequel to Off the Deep End, and hopefully get the other books that I've written as well get published in the near future.
Well, given your interest in all this, what do you do for a living?
I work on an ambulance here in San Diego as a supervisor and as an EMT, and so that puts me in connection with a lot of people in both law enforcement and just in the EMS community. So
you're around this kind of stuff all the time.
Oh, yes.
And you love it. I can hear it. You're so funny. You absolutely love it. You know, usually there's a catalyst for getting that first book published. What was yours?
My dad, he came to me because he knew that I'd been writing since 2001, and he told me, you got to get one of these published. And last year, I picked up Off the Deep End and decided that it was the time. This was the book to get published. And I was going to go through a different publisher, and he told me to submit it to Page Publishing, and the rest is history. And that was last November. I really enjoy writing. I enjoyed writing this book. It was like it flowed right onto the page for me.
Well, you know, John has a couple of CSI type stories that he's working on. So, you know what? We'll talk to you when that next book comes out. And we'll talk to you next Saturday at midnight at this very same time, at this very same place, 710 WOR. Thank you so much for hanging out with me and Rob tonight. We really appreciate it. We get very lonely in here. I am your host, Alice Stockton Rossini, and we'll catch you next time on the Page Publishing Book Club.